Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. The module which we are going to discuss today is the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and its amendments. In this, the learning outcomes of this module will be an in-depth understanding of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 and the consecutive amendments that have taken place, that is the Amendment Act of 2002 and the Amendment Act of 2006. And the second learning outcome would be an in-depth understanding of the protected areas which have been designated to protect and conserve the wildlife in this particular act. We will also be studying the penalties and the formation of the national and state level boards in detail. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Conservation of living natural resources, plants, animals and microorganisms and the non-living elements of the environment on which they depend is crucial for development and progress. Wildlife resources constitute a vital link in the survival of the human species because every one of us depends on plants and animals for all vital components of our welfare. The whole environment runs in the form of a food chain, and survival and dependence of all these species is vital and interdependent. Also, as said by Honorable Mr. Justice Markandeya Katju, that preservation of wildlife is important for maintaining the ecological balance in the environment and sustaining the ecological chain. It must be understood that there is interlinking in nature. In the present society, the challenge that the world faces is not the idea of conservation, but can conservation be implemented in national interest and within the means available to each country. The general impression about the term wildlife is that it includes ferocious, terrestrial or aquatic animals living in jungle, such as lions, tigers, etc. But actually the term includes all living organisms, that is, all plants, animals and microorganisms living in their natural habitat in wild state, but does not include or excludes the cultivated plants and domesticated animals. The conservation of wildlife is of immense importance to mankind. The extinction of wildlife would ultimately lead to the extinction of the human species itself. The ecological balance of the nature is disrupted if any harm is caused to the wildlife. So in order to understand how the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 came into being, let's have a glimpse of the legislative history of the same. In India, the wildlife laws have a long history. The earliest concern for wildlife could be traced to 3rd century BC when King Ashoka enacted the law of preservation of wildlife and environment. Under the Indian Penal Code 1860 also, the term animal was defined and it declared maiming and killing of animals as an offence punishable under various sections. The British government also passed the Elephants Preservation Act 1879, which prohibited killing, injuring, capturing or any attempt of the same to elephants. But the first direct codified law for wildlife protection was enacted by the British government, and it was the Wild Birds Protection Act 1887, which prohibited possession or sale of any kind of specified wild birds. Moving further, in 1912, the Wild Birds and Animals Protection Act was passed to fulfill the inadequacies of the Wild Birds Protection Act 1887. Further, the Indian Forest Act 1927 consolidated the law relating to forest and the transit of forest produce. The Forest Conservation Act 1980 was enacted to further check deforestation. The Cruelty to Animals Act 1960 and finally the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 were passed to protect, preserve and improve wildlife. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972 was passed by the Parliament under Article 252 of the Constitution at the request of 11 states and was intended to provide a comprehensive national framework for wildlife protection and to adopt a conservation strategy for specified endangered species and provide for protection of all species in specified areas. The preamble of the Act lays down, in quotes, an act to provide for the protection of wild animals, birds and plants, and for matters connected therewith, or ancillary or incidental thereto, with a view to ensuring the ecological and environmental security of the country. Unquote. The Act serves the constitutional purpose mentioned under Article 48A and 51AG, as it prohibits hunting of wild animals except in certain limited circumstances. The court has also declared that the provisions of the Wildlife Act are salutary and are necessary to be implemented to maintain ecological chain and balance. Moving on to the important definitions laid down under Section 2 of the Act. Some of the important definitions as they exist after the Amendment Act of 2002 are, because this Section 2 has been amended and a lot of definitions have been changed after the Amendment Act of 2002. After the amendment, the first definition of animal, it says that animal includes mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish and other chordates and invertebrates, and also includes their young and eggs. Moving further, animal article for the purpose of this act means an article made from any captive animal or wild animal other than vermin, and includes an article or object in which the whole or any part of such animal has been used, and ivory imported into India and an article made therefrom. Captive animal as per the Act means any animal specified in Schedule 1, Schedule 2 and Schedule 3 or Schedule 4 which is captured or kept or bred in captivity. Forest officer for the purpose of this Act means the forest officer appointed under Clause 2 of Subsection 2 of the Indian Forest Act 1927 or under any other act for the time being in force in a state. Forest produce shall have the same meaning as in subclause B of Clause 4 of Section 2 of the Indian Forest Act 1927. Habitat includes land, water or vegetation which is the natural home of any wild animal. As per the Act, hunting with its grammatical variations and cognate expressions include killing or poisoning of any wild animal or captive animal and every attempt to do so. It also further says that hunting will be capturing, coursing, snaring, trapping, driving or baiting any animal or captive animal and every attempt to do so. Injuring or destroying or taking any part of the body of any such animal, or in the case of wild birds or reptiles, damaging the eggs of such birds or reptiles or disturbing the eggs or nest of such birds or reptiles would also amount to hunting under this definition. National Board means the National Board for Wildlife constituted under Section 5A. National Park means an area declared whether under Section 35 or Section 38 or deemed under subsection 3 of Section 66 to be declared as a national park. Protected area means a national park, a sanctuary, a conservation reserve or a community reserve notified under Sections 1835, 36A and 36C of the Act, which will be dealt in detail in the further parts of this module. Reserve forest means the forest declared to be reserved by the state government under Section 20 of the Indian Forest Act 1927 or declared as such under any other same act. Sanctuary for the purpose of this act means an area declared as a sanctuary by notification under the provisions of Chapter 4 of this act and shall also include a deemed sanctuary under subsection 4 of Section 66. Weapon includes ammunition, bows and arrows, explosives, firearms, hooks, knives, nets, poison, snares and traps, and any instrument or apparatus capable of anesthetizing, decoying, destroying, injuring, or killing an animal. Wild animal means any animal specified in Schedules 1 to 4 and found wild in nature. Lastly, wildlife includes any animal, aquatic or land vegetation which forms part of any habitat. Moving further to Section 3 and 4 of the Act. Section 3 and 4 of the Act deals with the authorities to be appointed under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Section 3 and 4 states that a Director of Wildlife Preservation and such other officers as necessary are to be appointed by the central government. A Chief Wildlife Warden, Wildlife Wardens, Honorary Wildlife Wardens and such other officers as necessary are appointed by state governments. Moving on to Section 5, which deals with the powers that can be delegated from one authority to another. Section 5 subclause 1 states that the director may, with the previous approval of the central government and by order in writing, delegate all or any of his powers and duties under this Act to any officer subordinate to him, subject to such conditions, if any, as may be specified in the order. Number 2, the Chief Wildlife Warden may, with the previous approval of the state government, by order in writing, delegate all or any of his powers and duties under this Act, except few, to any officer subordinate to him, subject to such conditions, if any, as may be specified in the order. Subject to any general or special direction given or condition imposed by the Director or the Chief Wildlife Warden, any person authorized by the Director or the Chief Wildlife Warden to exercise any powers may exercise those powers in the same manner and to the same effect as if they had conferred on that person directly by this Act and not by way of delegation. Moving further, we shall now discuss Section 5A of the Act, which has been inserted by the Amendment Act of 2002, which talks about the constitution of the board. Section 5A provides that central government shall, within 3 months for national board and within a period of 6 months for state boards from the date of commencement of the Amendment Act of 2002, constitute the National and State Board for Wildlife. National Board for Wildlife consists of the following members, namely, number 1, the Prime Minister as chairperson, the Minister in charge of Forest and Wildlife as vice chairperson, number 3, 3 members of Parliament, of whom 2 shall be from the House of the People and 1 from the Council of States. Further, Member Planning Commission in charge of Forest and Wildlife, 5 persons to represent non-governmental organizations to be nominated by the central government, 10 persons to be nominated by the central government from amongst eminent conservationists, ecologists and environmentalists. The Secretary to the Government of India in charge of the Ministry of Department of the central government dealing with forest and wildlife. The Chief of the Army Staff, the Secretary to the Government of India in charge of the Ministry of Defence, the Secretary to the Government of India in charge of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, the Secretary to the Government of India in charge of the Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, the Secretary to the Government of India, Minister of Tribal Welfare, the Director General of Forest in the Ministry of Department of the Central Government dealing with Forest and Wildlife, the Director General of Tourism, Government of India, the Director General, Indian Council for Forestry Research and Education, Dehradun, the Director, Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, the Director, Geological Survey of India, the Director, Botanical Survey of India, the Director, Indian Veterinary Research Institute, the Member Secretary, Central Zoo Authority, the Director, National Institute of Oceanography, 1 representative each from 10 states and union territories by rotation to be nominated by the central government, and lastly, the Director of Wildlife Preservation, who shall be the Member Secretary of the National Board. After going through the members of the National Board, we can see that the National Board constitutes of all those people who have directly or indirectly a say in the wildlife protection. Moving on to the functions of the National Board, which have been laid down in Section 5C, it says that it shall be the duty of the National Board to promote the conservation and development of wildlife and forest by such measures as it deems fit. Further, it also states that without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing provisions, the measures referred to therein may provide for, that means the elaboration of the functions to be done by the National Board. Number 1, framing policies and advising the central government and the state governments on the ways and means of promoting wildlife conservation and effectively controlling poaching and illegal trade of wildlife and its products. Further, making recommendations on the setting up and management of national parks, sanctuaries and other protected areas, and on matters relating to restrictions of activities in those areas. Carrying out or causing to be carried out impact assessment of various projects and activities on wildlife or its habitat. Reviewing from time to time the progress in the field of wildlife conservation in the country and suggesting measures for improvement thereto, and preparing and publishing a status report at least once in 2 years on wildlife in the country. Moving further to the Constitution of State Board for Wildlife, which is enumerated in section 6 of the Act, which says that the state government shall, within a period of 6 months from the date of commencement of the Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2002, constitute a state board for wildlife consisting of the following members, namely, number 1, the Chief Minister of the state, in case of a union territory, either Chief Minister or Administrator, as the case should be the chairperson. Number 2, the Minister in charge of forest and wildlife, to be called the Vice Chairperson of the board. Number 3, 3 members of the state legislature, or in the case of a union territory with legislatures, 2 members of the state legislative assembly of that union territory. 3 persons to represent non-governmental organization dealing with wildlife to be nominated by the state government. Moving further, 10 persons to be nominated by the state government from amongst eminent conservationalists, ecologists and environmentalists, including at least 2 representatives of the scheduled tribe. The secretary to the state government or the government of the union territory, as the case may be, in charge of forest and wildlife. The officer in charge of the state forest department, the secretary to the state government department of tribal welfare, the managing director, State Tourism Development Corporation, an officer of the state police department not below the rank of inspector general, a representative of the armed forces not below the rank of a brigadier to be nominated by the central government, the director, Department of Animal Husbandry of the state, the director, Department of Fisheries of the state, an officer to be nominated by the director, Wildlife Preservation, a representative of the Wildlife Institute of India, Dehradun, a representative of the Botanical Survey of India, a representative of the Zoological Survey of India, and the Chief Wildlife Warden, who shall be the member secretary. Moving further to section 8, which lays down the duties of the State Board for Wildlife. It states that it shall be the duty of the State Board for Wildlife to advise the state government on matters of, or in the selection and management of areas to be declared as protected areas, in formation of the policy for protection and conservation of the wildlife and specified plants, in any other matter relating to the amendment of any schedule, in relation to the measures to be taken for harmonizing the needs of the tribal and other dwellers of the forest with the protection and conservation of wildlife, and lastly, in any other matter connected with the protection of wildlife which may be referred to it by the state government. Moving further, we are now going to discuss section 11, which is a very important section as it talks about hunting of wild animals to be permitted in certain cases. As per section 9 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, hunting of wild animals is not permitted, with an exception that hunting may be permitted only under circumstances which have been laid down in section 11 and 12. So, when is hunting of wild animals permitted? We will be discussing that under section 11. The hunting of wild animal is permitted when the Chief Wildlife Warden may, after satisfaction that any wild animal or on being satisfied that any wild animal which is being specified in Schedule 1 has become dangerous to human life or is so disabled or diseased so as to be beyond recovery, Then the Chief Wildlife Warden, in writing and stating the reasons thereof, permit any person to hunt such animal or cause animal to be hunted, provided that no wild animal shall be ordered to be killed unless the Chief Wildlife Warden is satisfied that such animal cannot be captured, tranquilized or translocated, provided further that no such captured animal shall be kept in captivity unless the Chief Wildlife Warden is satisfied that such animal cannot be rehabilitated in the wild, and the reasons for the same are to be recorded in writing. Further, the Chief Wildlife Warden or the authorized officer may, if he or she is satisfied that any wild animal specified in Schedule 2 and Schedule 3 has become dangerous to human life or to property, including standing crops or any land, or is so disabled or diseased so as to be beyond recovery, then the Chief Wildlife Warden, by order in writing and stating the reasons thereof, permitted any person to hunt such animal or group of animals in a specified area or cause such animal or group of animals in that specified area to be hunted. Moving further, we will now discuss the protected areas which have been dealt in Chapter 4 of the Act. The protected areas as per this Act includes sanctuaries, national parks and closed areas. As per Section 18, sanctuaries are notified by the state government, or the state government by notification declare its intention to constitute any area other than area comprised with any reserve forest or the territorial waters as a sanctuary if it considers that such area is of adequate ecological, faunal, floral, geomorphical, natural or zoological significance for the purpose of protecting, propagating or developing wildlife or its environment. Then such area may be declared to be a sanctuary. According to Section 18 subclause B, the state government shall appoint a collector within 90 days of coming into force of the Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2002 or within 30 days of the issue of notification under Section 18 to inquire into and determine the existence, nature and extent of rights of any person in or over the land comprised within the limits of the sanctuary. According to Section 26A of the Act, when a notification has been issued under Section 18 and the period for preferring claims has elapsed, and all claims, if any, made in relation to any land in an area intended to be declared as a sanctuary have been disposed of by the state government, or any area comprised within any reserve forest or any part of the territorial water which is considered by the state government to be of adequate importance to be termed as a sanctuary for protecting, propagating or developing wildlife or its environment, the state government shall issue a notification specifying the limits of the area which shall be comprised within the sanctuary and declare that the said area shall be sanctuary on and from such date as may be specified in the notification, provided that where any part of the territorial water is to be so included, prior concurrence of the central government shall be obtained by the state government, provided further that the limits of the area of the territorial waters to be included in the sanctuary shall be determined in consultation with the chief naval hydrographical to be included in the sanctuary shall be determined in consultation with the chief naval hydrographer of the central government and after taking adequate measures to protect the occupational interest of the local fishermen. Notwithstanding anything contained in subclause 1, the right of innocent passage of any vessel or boat through the territorial waters shall not be affected by the notification issued under subsection 1. This means that if any water area is to be included in the sanctuary, the right of innocent passage cannot be said no, because it is a principle of public international law. No alteration of the boundaries of a sanctuary shall be made by the state government except on a recommendation of the national board. Moving further, according to Section 27, no person other than a public servant on duty, a person who has been permitted by the Chief Wildlife Warden or the authorized officer to reside within the limits of the sanctuary, a person who has any right over immovable property within the limits of the sanctuary, or a person passing through the sanctuary along a public highway. And lastly, the dependents of the person referred above shall enter or reside in the sanctuary except under and in accordance with the conditions of a permit granted under section 28. Section 28 specifically talks about a grant of a permit by the chief warden on application written by an applicant for residing in the sanctuary for different purposes. Moving on to the next protected area, that is Declaration of National Parks. Section 35 subclause 1 states that whenever it appears to the state government that an area, whether within a sanctuary or not, is by reason of its ecological, faunal, floral, geomorphical or geological association or importance needed to be constituted as a national park for the purpose of protecting and propagating or developing wildlife therein or its environment, it may by notification declare its intention to constitute such area as a national park. Moving further, according to section 35 subclause 5 and 6, no alteration of the boundaries of a national park by the state government shall be made except on the recommendation of the national board. Further, no person shall destroy, exploit or remove any wildlife including forest produce from a national park, or destroy or damage or divert the habitat of any wild animal by any act whatsoever. Further, according to section 35 subclause 8, the provisions of section 27 and 28, no person shall destroy, exploit or remove any wildlife including forest produce from a national park, or destroy or damage or divert the habitat of any wild animal by any act whatsoever, or divert, stop or enhance the flow of water into or outside the national park except under and in accordance with the permit granted by the Chief Wildlife Warden, and no such permit shall be granted unless the state government, being satisfied in consultation with the national board that such removal of wildlife from the national park or the change in the flow of water into or outside the national park is necessary for the improvement and better management of wildlife, therein authorizes the issue of such permit. And only on the issue of such permit, such an act would be permitted, otherwise not. Moving further to section 36 subclause A, which deals with declaration and management of a conservation reserve, which is the third protected area. Section 36A, inserted by Amendment Act of 2002, provides that the state government may, after consultation with the local communities, declare any area owned by the government, particularly the area adjacent to national parks and sanctuaries, and those areas which link one protected area with another, as a conservation reserve for protecting landscapes, seascapes, flora and fauna and their habitat. If the conservation reserve includes any land owned by the central government, then its prior concurrence is necessary before such declaration. Moving further to section 36 subclause C, which talks about declaration and management of community reserve. Section 36C, again inserted by Amendment Act of 2002, provides that the central government may, where the community or an individual has volunteered to conserve wildlife and its habitat, declare any private or community land as a community reserve for protecting flora, fauna, and traditional or cultural conservation values and practices. However, no change in the land use pattern shall be made within the community reserve except in accordance with a resolution passed by the management committee and approved by the state government. Moving further to the Central Zoo Authority and recognition of zoos. Chapter 4A was added in 1991 by way of amendment of the 1972 Act. It contains section 38A to section 38J, which deal with Central Zoo Authority and recognition of zoos. Further, section 38A provides that the central government shall constitute the Central Zoo Authority, consisting of a chairperson, members not exceeding 10 in number for a term of 3 years, and a member secretary. Moving further, the Act also talks about National Tiger Conservation Authority. The Project Tiger was launched in the country on April 14, 1973 for conserving the endangered tiger. Initially, 9 tiger reserves were covered under the project, which has now increased to 28 reserves, falling in 17 states. With the twin objective of tiger conservation and harmonizing the rights of the tribal people living in and around tiger reserves, the Act was amended in 2006 to provide for a statutory authority with a legal backing with well-defined functions for conservation of tigers, known as the National Tiger Conservation Authority, which shall be responsible for implementation of tiger conservation plans prepared by the state governments, keeping in mind the need of the local people. Moving further, Tiger and Other Endangered Species Crime Control Bureau is covered under Chapter 4C of the Act, deals with Tiger and Other Endangered Species Crime Control Bureau. This chapter was also added by the Amendment Act of 2006. It deals with constitution, powers and functions of the Bureau. Moving further, we will now discuss the penalties which have been laid down under Section 51 of the Act. Section 51 very clearly deals with penalties for contravening provisions of the Act. It states that any person who contravenes any provision of this Act, except Chapter 5A dealing with prohibition of trade or commerce in trophies, animal articles, etc., derived from certain animals, and Section 38J dealing with prohibition of teasing, etc. in zoo, or any rule or order made thereunder, or who commits a breach of any of the conditions of any license or permit granted under this Act, shall be guilty of an offence against this Act, and shall on conviction be punished, and shall be on conviction be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 3 years, or with fine which may extend to 25,000 rupees, or with both. Provided that where the offence committed is in relation to any animal specified in Schedule 1 or Part 2 of Schedule 2, or meat of any such animal, animal article, trophy, or uncurled trophy derived from such animal, or where offence relates to hunting in a sanctuary or a national park, such offence shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 years, but which may extend to 7 years, and also with fine which shall not be less than 10,000 rupees. Provided further that in case of a second or subsequent offence of the nature mentioned in this subsection, the term of imprisonment shall not be less than 3 years, but may extend to 7 years, and also with fine which shall not be less than 25,000 rupees. Moving further, any person who contravenes any provisions of Chapter 5A which deals with prohibition of trade or commerce in trophies, animal articles, etc. derived from certain animals shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 years, but which may extend to 7 years, and also with fine which shall not be less than 10,000 rupees. Also, any person who contravenes the provision of Section 38J dealing with prohibition of teasing, etc. in zoos shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 6 months, or with fine which may extend to 2,000 rupees, or with both. Provided that in case of second or subsequent offence, the term of imprisonment may extend to 1 year, or with fine may extend to 5,000 rupees. The Amendment Act of 2006 further provides that any person who commits an offence in relation to the core area of a tiger reserve, or where the offence relate to hunting in the tiger reserve or altering the boundaries of the tiger reserve, such offence shall be punishable on first conviction with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 years, but may extend to 7 years, and also with fine which shall not be less than 50,000 rupees, but may extend to 2 lakh rupees, and in the event of a second or subsequent conviction, with imprisonment for a term of not less than 7 years, and also with fine which shall not be less than 5 lakh rupees, but may extend to 50 lakh rupees. If any offence is committed as a consequence of any abetment, the person abetting the offence shall also be punished with the same punishment as provided for that offence in the Act. Moving further, the Act also talks about the forfeiture of property derived from illegal hunting and trade. The Amendment Act of 2002 has added a chapter 6A consisting of section 58A to 58Y, which deals with various aspects of forfeiture of property derived from illegal hunting and trade. As there is a chain which is continuously going on, and we all, that is the animals and the humans, are dependent on this food chain, and the conservation of the wildlife will lead to the welfare of the humans. So, it is the duty of the humans to preserve and protect the wildlife so that the nation and the humans can flourish at the same time. Thank you.